In this video, we're going to take a look at a red ink by Montblanc Corn Poppy Red. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the red ink playlist, so if you want to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do have a few moments of shading, only moments in the stub and in the extra fine, not in the medium. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than a stub, but the medium's the same tone as that stub. Extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while medium took 12. The scrubby for both give us no color variation, but there's only little pepperings of it in the extra fine. The smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Platinum 3776 with a music nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. We have no bleeding, but we do have some minor ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. From real tone variation, the extra fine is a tad bit lighter than the stub, but the medium is much darker than the stub. Extra fine took 12 seconds to dry, while medium took 20. Scrubby for both show no color variation. We're not getting it here. In the smear test, you can't recover if you smear while you're writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. We see, first off, this is a true prime red. There is a little that's gathered as a line on the bottom, but the rest is really pushing its way up and gathering all the way towards the top. The one on the right that's let dry for 10 minutes, that line on the bottom is a little darker, a little bit more there, but the majority of it is pushing up. It does suggest that there might be just a little bit of resistance for this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. Now we have no feather, spread, halo sheen, some shading. A little bit shows up in the stub. It does show itself a little bit in the extra fine, like you see here on Brown and Fox. Not so much on the medium. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub, while the medium's darker than the stub. Extra fine took 9 seconds to dry, while medium took 16. The scrubby for both give us no color variation, and we didn't get any. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use it in a note-taking situation, but that's just because it's starting to become quite woolly, and this would be a very expensive note taker. But I think you probably could, even though I wouldn't. Now, water's reactivating and lifting most of it. You do see a little bit of white of the paper coming through at the bottom. It becomes a very light pink. Pen flesh does what water does, nothing more, and the 1/3 bleach solution completely obliterates it. Now, as we would expect with a Montblanc ink, it only took water to get this out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on P. Berger paper. Now we have a lot of ghosting that's going on and a lot of spots that are bleeding heavy in, not through. None of this touches the page underneath, but all of this means I couldn't use the back of the page for fear of ruining both sides of notes. Looking at all of it, we really get pretty fair performance on a cheap paper. We have no feathering, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine and the stub are the same tone, while the medium still is much darker than everything else. Extra fine took 3 seconds to dry and medium took 5. Scrubby for both show no color variation. We don't get it. And the smear test, you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Montblanc's Corn Poppy Red has a viscosity of 2.87, so it is still normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity tests and all that's done, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now let's take a look at Strathmore writing paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, but the extra fine does come in just a tad bit darker than the stub, and the medium much darker than the extra fine. Extra fine took 2 seconds to dry, while medium took 3. Scrubby for both don't give us any color variation because we don't get any in the writing, and the smear test you can recover if you smear while you're writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time is 17 seconds, and the realm of normal is 13 to 21 seconds. Montblanc's Corn Poppy Red has an average dry time of 13 seconds, so it's normal. The last writing sample is done on a Vinta notebook, where they have hashtag Modern Traveler. Now we have a lot of ghosting that's going on, and here we do actually see some spots that are coming heavier into the page. Now, none of this touches the page underneath, and I don't see any of this stopping you from using the back of the paper. So really good for what the paper is. We have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. The extra fine showing moments of shading. The K in Quick, the Q in Quick. Fox looks very dark compared to the center of Quick. The very dark compared to what's around it. Extra fine took 3 seconds to dry and the medium took 4. Now the medium, by far the darkest tone on the page. Scrubby for both give no color variation, although we get a very, very sparse peppering of it in the extra fine. I kind of like how it's there. The scrubby for both, the smear test says you actually could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Montblanc's Corn Poppy Red, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I didn't want to draw attention away from it, but I wanted a very good classic color that went with it. So I chose a nice blue by Atramentis, their Guiuseppe Verdi or dark blue. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Montblanc's Corn Poppy Red? This is a dark, bold red that shades well, and I can do without it. I say it shades well, and that's as a comparison to most reds. The cost of this doesn't warrant the ink, though, not for me. It's perfectly good, and I do get why so many people love it. It's deserved. Just not at that cost for me. Now, if I could get a bottle at a reasonable price, I would happily do so. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I really like its darkest solid tones that you get from a wet broad pen. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're going to take a look at Diamine's Golden Sands, a shimmer ink.